Okay, so before I talk about why our religions seem to be fragments of something bigger, I actually just want to really hammer that point home. And I don't think it's just religion that's been shattered. I think it's our reality as a whole. I think there's a history that that's been hidden from us that we're not aware of. And I kind of want to just walk us through it. So bear with me. We're just going to go through a bunch of photos. Now, I pulled all this together just by Googling online for about 30 minutes. So keep in mind that there is an overwhelming amount of information on this stuff, if you're willing to look. But I'll just walk you through the stuff I pulled together really quick here. So we've got this thing, at a very high level, we've got this thing called star forts or star cities. And here's an example of these things. So it's these complexes, essentially, that are built with these really interesting kind of geometric patterns. Now, some people are trying to claim that, well, this is a defensive fortification, that's why it looks this way. The reality is you are creating a ton of extra ground that you have to cover as troops. You're actually tripling or quadrupling the amount of ground you've got to defend, so it's not really a defensive strategy, it doesn't look like. Also, look at the shapes. I mean, this is really bizarre. One of the things you'll notice is that if you know sacred geometry, which is kind of think of it like advanced mathematics that kind of tie into physics, you'll notice that a lot of these things, I mean, they kind of look like snowflakes, right? They look like sound frequencies. When those are visualized, you can see that these things are actually directional. So you've got the centerpiece, and then you've got this thing like pointing off into the distance here. Just very interesting. Our modern construction does not build this way. This was clearly designed by something or with some other intent than what most of our cities are, and we can slap a narrative on there, but I think that that is just very interesting. It's very strange. It's not something that we see that often. So let's keep going down. Now, when I was in DC, well, I was kind of surprised by how much symbolism was on the buildings. So here's a couple examples. And what I noticed was it was almost, I shouldn't say every building, but man, yeah, it felt like almost every building was just covered in statues and esoteric symbols. So you've got all of this stuff. And what is this, right? I mean, I get that it looks cool, but what does it mean? Because there's a whole language of symbolism here, and it's very interesting to see this on our buildings. Here you've got another one. This is on the Justice Guardian of Liberty. As you can see, we've got these pillars here and all of these deities or these figurines, statues up above. Got another one here. So that's kind of interesting to see all of this on our buildings. Then we've got statues, right? Again, DC was just absolutely cram-packed with statues. And here we've got these guys that look like Greeks or Romans. We have serpent figurines all over and reptilian figurines, which, you know, that's definitely very suspect. We've got fish up here. So fish and reptiles play a really big role in kind of the secret history. We've got some more symbolism over here. Look at this. Every building just covered in all of these little, it's not just statues, like look at this. It's symbolism all over the place. It's symbols and statues all over the place. And here's another one. This is George Washington. I'll show you another picture of this in a little bit, but just keep in mind this exact, the way that he's sitting here. So this is kind of a weird picture of him. This is probably not how we would typically think of George Washington. But this with one arm up, one arm down, this is the symbol of as above, so below, which is a kind of a esoteric thing that people in occult symbology use quite a bit, and I'll be explaining what that means here in a little while. Then we get into our government. So the logos and seals and symbols that our government uses, we can kind of dive in and just take a look at, I believe this is Maryland, I think. And so that's a little bit strange. You know, what does any of this mean? You know, you can go look these up and they'll give you kind of a very basic explanation of what it means, but there's a lot more going on here than what's meeting the eye. Look at these shapes. Look at this checker pattern. Like, all of this stuff actually means something, right? These are symbols designed to convey information. Same thing as over here. Let me get this out of my way. Same thing over here. So we've got this sword, which actually, you can see that this is a phallic symbol, is what that actually is kind of sneaking in there a little bit. We've got these interesting red and green, and it's got some kind of a berry or something on it as well. We've got some kind of strange plant coming around. There's a lot of symbolism going on here, and it's not, the story that they're going to tell you may be dramatically different than what the symbol actually means. As we go back down, CIA, we've got this really strange shape. It's got a cross, and then it's this strange thing that is popping out here, and this is a symbol that's actually used elsewhere and means something. We've got this phoenix, or this bird, eagle, which is kind of used to represent a phoenix. So we've got a lot of symbolism going on here. Again, over here, we've got a bunch of symbolism. We've got a certain number of berries and leaves. We've got a certain number of arrows in the sheath. We've got a certain number of tail feathers, symbols all over the place, right? And so, as we're looking at all of these symbols, one of the things to keep in mind is that we kind of think back to the early days of the church, where they would read the Mass in Latin, and the common person couldn't read the Bible. They couldn't access that level of knowledge, right? This kind of symbolism is the exact same thing. We as common folk aren't able to access what does this mean. It's a secret language that's being used all over our buildings, our statues, our government seals, our currency. So here is a check, and you can do this at home. Pull out one of your checks and try really zoom in, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this that well, but do you see that we have, it's not a line. It actually says, and now it just says authorized signature, authorized signature, authorized signature, all across this. But that's kind of an interesting thing. Why would that be there, right? That seems like what I've been hearing from a lot of people is that, our government's incompetent. There's no way they could pull off something very clever. But then you start to see stuff like this, and you say, well, no, that's actually strangely sophisticated. There's a high level of intelligence going on in this stuff. Take a look at the money. The money is one of the things that creeps me out the most. And actually, let me see if I can pop this up so I can just see a little bit even closer. So as we get into the money, look at this. Look at this artwork is just, so I'm a designer, a self-trained designer, and look at the level of quality in this. This is extremely intricate artwork. What does this remind you of? So this reminds you of a reptile's eye, right? That's kind of what it's hinting at a little bit here. What about this stuff in the background? It looks like a spider web, right? Very interesting. If I come over here, you'll see that nested right in this little area here, there's a tiny shape, and actually you can find images online of this. This is an owl. It's a little tiny owl that's sitting right inside of our money. You've got, again, these leaves and berries, which, what does that mean? You've got symbols, a key, scales. You've got all of this stuff going on. Now, if we get down here, again, you'll see this eagle with a certain number of arrows, a certain number of leaves, a certain number of tail feathers, a certain number of stripes, a certain number of stars. There's all kinds of stuff going on here. What is this thing? Like, this kind of looks like a weird fish, right? Eyeballs here, some kind of a weird tail. Again, we've got this webbing or this net all over the place. This is, I would say that this is a magical spell that we have in our hands. That's what these things are. These are not just purely physical things. These are magic or esoteric kinds of devices. Take a look at this thing. We've got this all-seeing eye. We've got this person looking out of this invisible pyramid, and then we have this pyramid here, and there's all kinds of Greek and Latin wording here. We've got, tons and tons of symbolism. That's really strange to be on our money and inside of our checks, right? The level of sophistication here, this is not an easy thing to design. This is extremely complex. Look at all these little things. Like, everything on this bill means something. There is layers and layers and layers of meaning going on that is totally we're not aware of. Let's keep going down. So, business. So with logos, now this is just a basic example. I could do this with anything, but look at the number of logos with eyeballs in them. That could be, now one of the things to keep in mind is you don't need, it's not about the exact shape. With a symbol, all you're trying to do is you're trying to get close enough that it will trigger and say, oh, that makes me think of an eye, right? And that's good enough to convey the message. So we have a circle. Anything circular really can do this. We've got Walmart with an eye, CVS with an eye, Target, Days Inn with this could be an eye, right? Kind of a waking up eye. Fox News, look at this thing. We've got the little eyelid here, and we've got the eyelashes coming up, right? We've got AOL with an eye kind of thing. NVIDIA, Dole with an eye. Google Chrome, LucasArts, Time Warner, Discover. Look at all these eyeballs everywhere. And look, they even highlight this to kind of show you the retina of the eye. Another thing to keep in mind here is it's not just the eyeball, right? So if we come back and take a look at this, what is this? This looks like a sun, like rays of the sun. We've got rays of the sun here, rays of the sun, rays of the sun, rays of the sun, and you got that weird pyramid that was on the dollar bill. We've got rays of the sun with an eyelid, right? Same as the Fox logo. See, this is the little eyelid thing, and this is the eyelid thing with little rays of the sun. This kind of looks like a planet of some sort, like a sun or possibly Mars, something like that. So look at the amount of symbolism in just these companies. Now, again, I just pulled out companies that had a little circular eye logos. You could do this with different things. You could do this with pyramids. You could do this with sun-shaped logos. You could do this with a bunch of different, there's these symbols that make it into our institutions for some reason, and they get repeated over and over and over, and they're done in a very sophisticated way. These are not simplistic all the time. These are very complex, a degree of symbolism going on here, right? And if it was just this by itself, I would say, well, whatever, it's maybe a coincidence, but what about this, right? What about this? What about this? What about this? It's everywhere. It is saturating our culture. It is saturating everything around us. It's just absolutely full of these symbols. As we get down into entertainment, so take a look at the way the entertainment works. Now, we've got Rihanna here she's got snake eyes and snake hair. So again, this serpent or this reptile thing is a pretty big deal. We have this group called Escape. She's got this really interesting little headdress on, and actually what that's doing is it's symbolizing, over here we have Saturn, the rings of Saturn, right? So we've got this interesting, and you can see the star, the universe star scape behind her. So it's clearly kind of a shout out to the rings of Saturn. We have over here Lady Gaga. We've got the skull in the background, the ram's horns. We've got little bunny ears. So there's quite a bit of symbolism going on here. Again, look at this. Look at this. Whatever this looks like, a ram's horn or a skull of some sort up here going on. She's a bat. I mean, she's just going all over the place. We've got these pharaohs. And by the way, the pharaohs, if you can tell, this is actually a cobra here, the neck of a cobra. These are probably not showing it that well, but you've got the headpiece coming out of the third eye is kind of the cobra's eyes. So we've got all of this symbolism going on. And then take a look at this too. You can find a bunch of these out there where there's certain gestures or hand gestures. So again, we get back to the eye with the little rays of the sun, right? Same as we saw in the logos. Now we've got a bunch of celebrities that are doing this. You can see on his shirt, "Do what thou wilt." This is a phrase used by Aleister Crowley and many, many others, which is an occult phrase. Again, more eyes. Some of these are repeated, obviously, but we just have eyes all over the place. You can just do a quick search on this, and you're going to find a bunch of material. And then we get into our religions. So I found this guy, for whatever reason, just the way his body is shaped, he is particularly creepy. But I want to, I don't want to pick on him too much, other than take a look at his outfit. Look at this amazing degree of symbolism all over the place. Look at this headdress, right? Look at this little cherub he's got on his thing. He's got all these leaves back here. Look at these jewel placements, are interesting. These, by the way, actually, this is his third eye chakra. This is his crown chakra. These are additional chakras. So they actually, the placement of these things appear to have some kind of a meaning. Look at Jesus on the cross. Look at that picture of Jesus. Wow. I'll get into that a little bit more here in a second. And then look at this. We've got more symbolism, all kinds of shapes and stuff over here. These little guys look a little bit scared of him. This poor guy really just does not look that good. Um, again, look at this cross that he's got on his hand. He's got a sheep on it. He's got all kinds of symbolism going on here, and these symbols do not mean what we think they mean, right? So there's degrees of knowledge going on here that we're not aware of. So here's some more crucifix symbolism. Now, I will just pay attention to what Jesus looks like in all of this stuff, right? Pay attention to Jesus here. What is going on with these these seem kind of needlessly cruel to me. Now, I may be missing the culture to some extent, but these really are, if you're trying to convey something symbolically, like if you know the Christian religion and you're familiar with all the stories, then you would understand, oh, this is Jesus suffering for my sins. But if you are a stranger, what does this look like? It looks like they're carrying around the guy being tortured, right? That is the most immediate and simplest way to look at these images. And I think that's actually the true way to think about these images. Like Jesus is starving and gaunt. Well, why would he be starving? He was actually a healthy guy. We know he was very, very strong. He carried the cross all the way to his crucifixion. Or not all the way, but he was beat or he was whipped like 30, 40 times, whatever that is. Like he was very, very powerful and healthy to be able to go through all of that, and yet here they have him starving, gaunt, torn apart. Strange, that's not even historical. So why do they have that? Here's another one, just hanging, dangling, just in such pain and torture. Do you really think Jesus went out this way, defeated, miserable, in misery, or do you think Jesus went out with grace and poise, knowing that he was the Son of God, and he released his own spirit? He didn't die in defeat. So the symbols on these don't add up, even just at a cursory glance. These are just very strange kind of symbols. Another thing that I just noticed, this very top part reminds me again of kind of like a snake, and I didn't notice that before, but it was enough to remind me that something weird is happening with those symbols. All right, so let's get down then and take a look actually at these little hats that they wear. Look at all the symbols on these hats, first of all, right? These miters. And then look at them from the side. So from the side and from the back, what you're going to see is that this can vaguely remind you of what? It's a mouth. It's like a fish mouth. And that's actually, if you go back into the older school histories, what you're going to find is that they used to worship Dagon and the fish gods, and this kind of a hat represented that. So this is an old, and you can, again, go dig this up. There is so much information on this stuff if you know that you should look for it. There's so much information on all of this stuff. All right, and then let's get back down to the snake stuff. So here is a look at the Vatican City kind of cathedral thing, and take a look, like what does this remind you of? This shape here. I mean, do you see we've got an eyeball over here, we've got an eyeball over here, we've got scales everywhere, and then we've got two sharp pointy teeth, right? It kind of looks reptilian when you start thinking about what this looks like. Let's take a look at the shape of the building. So this is what the building looks like from outside. Again, we've got that eye here with the webbing and scales all over the place, and kind of looks like a viper head. Now, again, this is just one data point. If this was the only thing that there was, it'd be like, okay, whatever. Maybe a little strange, but no big deal. But after all of the symbolism, and again, I pulled this together in like 30 minutes. There is so much of this. It is mind-blowing how much there is. So after a certain point, you have to start saying, okay, when do the coincidences start adding up to something that I need to start taking seriously, like something is going on? Here's another good one. This is back to that original shape. You can see that, again, this kind of snake face thing going on. They've got a couple little examples here of these vipers and what this might actually look like. A couple different angles of the shot. And then you have, look at this. Remember that George Washington statue? So this is the actual occult symbol for it, as above, so below. And then this one actually shows all of the details. So it's the head of the ram or ox and ram's horns. You've got the moon symbolism here and here. You've got this these two winding snakes like the DNA symbol. All of these things are symbols. You've got this star. This all means stuff. And then also take a look at, this is, again, inside of that inside of this building, kind of sitting behind the Pope. I wonder if there's a good picture of it here. You can see right up here, there's something in the background. What is that? Well, that is this scene. This is Jesus rising or coming back in a cloud of glory. Does that look like a cloud of glory to you? It certainly does not look like a cloud of glory to me. It looks like an apocalyptic scene. Everything's being blown apart. This is really just grotesque and disgusting. And then also, here's his face, but what is this shape, right? What does that remind you of? Some kind of like a snake or a crocodile head, some kind of a reptile-looking head. Here it is. Oh, I guess they are overlaying this here. I wonder if I have yeah, I've got a couple more pictures. So these are at different angles. Again, you can see that this is kind of like a nuclear, this reminds me of like a nuclear apocalyptic kind of scene. But look at his head. Do you see this shape up here by his head? Again, you've got the snake shape. Now this is from a different angle, which is strange. Here's another one, different angle, and still the snake shape. So you can Google this again. You're going to find that no matter what angle you view this thing at, you're always seeing Jesus, but you're always seeing this snake thing at the top. The amount of symbolism that they're stuffing into all of this stuff is just really, really interesting. I don't know if I'd say interesting. It's kind of scary, all the stuff going on, and it's important that we, are aware of what's happening. Now, if you're Catholic and you pray the crucifix, that's totally fine, actually. What we need to do is we need to be aware of what's happening, and then we can override the reasoning behind it. So all things are good, but if you are behaving, if you're acting or living out of ignorance and you just don't know what's happening and you're just going through the motions, they're actually hijacking you. They're taking your energy, your focus, your attention, and they're pushing it into something that may not be the most constructive or productive thing. And so that's really what this battle is to some extent. But I wanted to walk through all of these different examples, and there's so many more, but all these different examples, because I do believe that we have not just a fractured religious institution, but I believe that our history has been concealed from us, that there is a lot more than meets the eye here to all of this stuff. There's symbolism, there's all this ancient knowledge that has been hidden from us that we don't know how to interpret, just like people in the ancient church didn't know how to read the Latin Bible. There's a lot of stuff going on here that I want to dig into a little bit more.